Live from your election headquarters, this is the 8 News Now Daily Voting Guide.
And welcome to the 8 News Now Daily Voting Guide. I'm David Charnes. Every day here at 3:30, we are talking to candidates, talking about issues that you are voting on right now heading up to Election Day. Earlier today, I sat down with RNC Chair Michael Whatley. We talked about reasons why he says voters should vote for Republicans, including former President Donald Trump, plus the races he thinks could actually go to Democrats. Well, thank you so much for being here. What is the RNC looking at in these last 11 or so days until Election Day here in Nevada?
What we want to do is continue the effort to talk directly to every voter in Nevada. We want to talk to every family in Nevada. So that's why you've seen J.D. Vance out here. You've seen President Trump out here. You're going to see a steady stream of surrogates that are going to be out here because what we want to do is have that conversation every single day. The issues that really matter out here, grocery prices, gasoline prices, housing prices, you know, President Trump has a plan to bring down those costs and make sure that every Nevada family is going to have more money in their pocket through tax cuts. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. What he really wants to do with that financial plan is more money in your pocket, less money going out the door, and that's going to be better for every family. But we want to have a real conversation about illegal immigration and what we've seen at the southern border. Nevada's not technically a border state, but you are a border state, right? And you're very affected by it. So, you know, for us, what we want to make sure we're doing in every battleground state is continuing to beat the drum and be there and have those conversations with the families directly.
There are economists who've looked at both of the plans. Looking at President Trump's plan, economists say that would actually add to the deficit. And then this whole talk about tariffs is really just another tax. How are Republicans defending that going into this election?
Well, it's not a tax. What we saw during his first year, our first administration, was he put tariffs in place strategically, intelligently, and it really helped in terms of boosting our economy to the point where the Biden-Harris administration did not even remove any of those tariffs. They kept them in place because they agreed that it was a good financial policy. What President Trump has been very clear about wanting to do is use tariffs to help increase domestic manufacturing. He wants to create jobs here in America, high-paying jobs, manufacturing jobs, and that's really what you want to do with those types of tariffs. What we saw during Donald Trump's first 4 years was a very, very robust economy. What we saw was the most people ever in the workforce, the lowest unemployment ever among women, among blacks, among Hispanics. Then we had COVID, and then we were in the process of recovering coming out of COVID. So we've got a track record that shows what his plans are going to do. We saw real GDP growth. We saw real wage increases, and we had inflation under 2% every single year that he was in office. Under the current administration, that's not the case. We are seeing real wages are down. We've seen inflation go all the way up to 9%. Right now, they're bragging about it at 3%. It's still twice as high as it was the day that Joe Biden took office.
You mentioned that we are quasi-affected by the immigration issue, which we are. We have a incredibly diverse state. We have a lot of migrants who live in the state. We have illegal immigrants who live in the state. The former president has talked about deportations, rounding people up, sending them back. But we have mixed families here. We have families of illegal immigrants, people who are the children of illegal immigrants. What do you say to those people who are registered voters, who are facing their family members possibly being deported?
What we're seeing right now all across the country is we are reeling from the surge that we have seen. 10, 12, 15 million illegal immigrants that have come across with the programs that Kamala Harris has put in place as the borders are. The system shock that we have had in America is why housing prices are through the roof. And why we've seen other prices that are going through the roof. We're spending billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars right now servicing illegal immigrants, allowing them into the country. Kamala Harris wants to give them Medicare, wants to give them free health care, wants to give them free college tuition, things along those lines. Look, we are absolutely for legal immigration. We think it's very, very important that we are going to continue to have legal immigrants come in, and they're a true blessing for this country right now. But there's no question that the border has got to be fixed. That illegal immigration has absolutely overwhelmed communities here in Nevada as well as across the country.
But what about splitting up those families that are already here?
I think the first place that you're going to look at is the violent felons. The fact that we have hundreds of thousands of convicted felons that are living in the United States that have been released into this country is a huge problem. We've got tens of thousands of people who've been convicted of murder, convicted of rape that are here in the United States. They've been released into this country under Kamala Harris's policies. That's a huge problem. And I really think that the president's very serious about trying to figure out how to get them out of this country as quickly as he can.
I want to talk about some of the down-ballot races. So we're talking about the Senate race, Republican Sam Brown against Democratic Senator Jacky Rosen. There's a lot of money that's now flooding into this race. Why is that?
Well, I think that this is a swing state, as you said. It's a very swingy state. It's also a battleground race in the Senate, and we're seeing a lot of positive movement right now here in Nevada for Sam Brown, for Donald Trump, and we're very excited about that. That's, we've had J.D. Vance, who's been out here, President Trump, who has been out here. We're very happy with what we're seeing in early votes and absentee votes. Right now, there is a focus nationally on making sure that we're going to be able to flip the Senate. We feel very good that Sam Brown is closing strong right now. We're 11 days out, and he is in a position to hopefully be able to close that gap and be that 51st Republican senator.
And what about the House? The money's not going into these House races.
Well, I think in Nevada, most of those House races really do seem to kind of be outside the margin for it. Certainly nationally, we have a very big push. The Republicans really, truly want to expand that majority. And so we're working very hard in places like California, New York, Florida, Texas, Michigan, Ohio, North Carolina, where we've got an opportunity to pick up 4 seats to make sure that we're going to get those battleground districts.
I really appreciate your being here. Thank you so much.